I think at first glance, it's to make a generalization of the total Vancouver and Toronto markets is hard to do. I think there's certain sub-markets in Vancouver and some sub-markets in Toronto that will continue to do well and others that won't. I do think that the new legislation, the new sort of the 15% tax put a little damper on pricing. But I overall, condo prices in certain sub-markets, especially in Vancouver and Toronto, will continue to rise because there's more demand for condos than single detached homes. And I think this market will be strong for the next foreseeable future.
It goes back to supply again. I think so long as Vancouver and Toronto continue to be attractive places to live and work, there will still be continued demand. So there still needs to be a lot more supply. I believe the statistics in City of Toronto or the Greater Toronto area, they're experiencing 100,000 new people per year. There needs to be housing to meet that demand. And I just see a continued resurgence, even despite rent caps and things that have been happening with the Wynne government. It is a very positive time, and I think a true inflection point in the industry in Canada, but again, a very positive one, and I think good times for those that respond well to the market going forward.
So the first part of the question, how do you see the impact of condos and apartment buildings? I think there's a lot of room in both those sides, and there's a lot of growth. I think the prices of condos are going to go up to a level that it's going to be unaffordable for people to buy, which is going to result in more renters. We already have very little vacancy in both those cities. I believe it's 0.7 in Toronto and 0.6 in Vancouver. Vancouver's building about 8,000 units right now, which is about 12% of its existing rental stock, excluding condominiums. Toronto is building about 5,000 units of the 30,000 that are slated to be apartments, and in conjunction with that, over 100,000 units of condo. I think what will end up happening is in Toronto, over the next 2 or 3 years, there'll be a ceiling on rents, and there'll be more rental product available that will come from the condos that are being built. In Vancouver, I think the tightness remains. I think it's a result of millennials, boomers, and seniors becoming part of the rental market.
Vancouver and Toronto really is where everybody wants to be. So if you're a young person, you want to be in a big city with mass transit. You want to be in a place where that you can you can sleep in your apartment, but live in the building in the city. And these are great cities to live in. So I think that there's a magnet for younger people to come there. There's a magnet for business to go there, and so on. So these are world-class cities, and I think they show nothing but upside in growth. Now, interestingly enough, both these cities have old, tired apartments, and that's the opportunity. As well as if you ask any investor in Canada, what cities are on your investment list? Vancouver and Toronto are on that list, and sometimes other cities aren't on that list. So I think these are good cities to be in. Now, they come with their challenges. They come with very expensive land, very expensive construction costs, but that's also balanced with higher rents and higher demand.
Absolutely, I do. The demand for housing in both Toronto and Vancouver is tied directly to job growth, and in both cities, job growth has been substantial. As a result, the demand for housing is high, and given that housing costs have gotten away from many people, the move to rental will only continue, which will drive up rental rates in both cities.